The assignment was simple. Catalog the private journals of His Majesty, King Aldrich the Iron. 40 years of personal records, unseen by any eye but his. I was told to inventory them, record their dates, note their condition. I was not told to read them. I read them. What I found in those pages didn't terrify me because the king was a monster. It terrified me because he hadn't always been. And because I now knew exactly who made him one.
My name's Elias. I was a royal scribe, 3rd class, which means I was paid to write things down and pretend not to understand what I was writing. The Chancellor called me in on a Tuesday. He didn't ask me to sit. The King's private archives require cataloguing, he said. You'll begin today. You'll speak to no one about the contents. You'll complete the inventory and deposit your notes with my secretary. Is that understood? I said yes. He slid the key across the desk without looking at me. The vault is in the eastern substructure. Torch is already lit. Don't touch anything you don't have to. He was already signing another document before I reached the door. I told myself it was just an archive, just old paper, just another assignment in a long career of writing things down and pretending not to understand them. The journals went back 43 years. I started with the oldest, as instructed, Volume 1, Year 1 of the King's reign. The handwriting was different than I expected, precise and small, almost gentle. The first entry read, "Today the crown was placed on my head. It was heavier than I expected. I did not show that I felt it." I wrote down the date. I wrote down the condition of the binding. I moved to the next volume. I should have stopped there. Instead, I went backward. The journals predated the reign. There were earlier ones, personal ones, filed in a separate section of the shelf, no numbers on the spines, dated by year only. The oldest was labeled with a single word. Before. I opened it. The first entries were written by a child. Not a prince. A child. 8 years old. He wrote about his dog. He wrote about a window he liked to look out of because you could see the eastern garden. He wrote about his mother's hands, that she had rings on every finger and they were cold when she touched his face, but he didn't mind. He drew pictures in the margins. I sat on the floor of that vault and I held the journal of an 8-year-old boy, and I thought about the man sitting on the throne 2 floors above me. The same hands. One entry near the back of that first journal had been crossed out. Crossed out so violently the pen had torn the paper. Beneath the scribbling, I could still read 4 words. I want to leave. He had been 8 years old. He had wanted to leave. Lord Verith appeared in the journals in the 2nd year. The prince was 9. Lord Verith says I am too soft for a king. He says softness is a disease, and the cure is repetition. Today's repetition was standing in the courtyard for 4 hours in the rain without a coat. I didn't ask to come inside. And then, a week later, Lord Verith says I did well. I didn't cry today. He said that was a beginning. And a month after that, I am learning that crying is a choice. Lord Verith says all feelings are choices. He says I can choose to feel them, or I can choose to be useful. I am choosing to be useful. He was 9 years old.
He was being taught that his emotions were a failure. I put the journal down. I looked at the portrait on the wall that I had barely noticed when I entered. Lord Counsel Verith, Chief Advisor to the Crown, years 3 through 22. He looked like a kind man. He had always looked like a kind man.
By year 4 of the journals, the prince was 12. The entries had changed. No more drawings, no more mentions of the dog. I later found a single line. "The dog died. I did not cry," Lord Verith observed. The language had become formal, stripped of adjectives, stripped of the words "I feel" entirely. He described events. He described outcomes. He described weather. He did not describe himself. But in year 12, there was one entry that broke the pattern. It was one line long. "I don't know what I am anymore. I used to know. Now Lord Verith says that's good. That means it's working." He was 12 years old. He didn't know what he was anymore, and the man engineering that dissolution had called it progress.
The journals referenced a staff member, Elena, a nurse, assigned to the prince's wing for years 2 through 8. It took me an afternoon to find her in the staff records. It took me another hour to find her in person. She was in the Eastern Residential Wing. She had never left palace service. She was 79 years old. I told her I had been reading the journals. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, without looking at me, "He cried every night for 2 years. And then one morning he didn't cry anymore. And Lord Verith came to my quarters that evening and told me, 'Good, we're making progress. Say nothing about this to anyone.' She finally looked at me. 'I said nothing,' she said. 'For 50 years, I said nothing.' She folded her hands in her lap. 'I don't know if that makes me part of it,' she said. 'I've never been able to decide.'
My assignment was to catalog, to inventory, to note condition and date. My assignment was not to understand. My assignment was not to write what I had found in a separate document, in plain language, with every source cited, journals referenced by volume and page, staff testimony recorded verbatim. And my assignment was not to title that document, "What was done to the king and who did it." And yet, I sat at that desk and I looked at the blank paper, and I thought about the 8-year-old boy who had drawn a dog in the margins of his journal. I thought about the crossed-out words, "I want to leave." I thought about the nurse who had said nothing for 50 years. I picked up the quill. I understand that what I am about to do has consequences. I am a third-class scribe. I have no power here. But someone should know. Someone should have always known.
I requested an audience. I was refused. I walked in anyway. I don't know what I expected. He looked at me for a long time. He didn't call the guards. "You are the scribe," he said. Not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You were in my vault." "Yes, Your Majesty." A silence that lasted longer than any silence I had experienced. "What did you find?" he asked. And I held up the document. And I said very quietly, "I found the boy who drew dogs in the margins. I found the man who taught you not to be him. I found 2 years of nightly crying that stopped one morning and was called progress." He looked at me. He had not moved. His face had not changed. And then something happened that I believe has not happened in that throne room in 30 years. I won't describe it. Some things are not for transcription. The king dismissed me from service. That was all. The guards escorted me to my quarters to collect my things. They waited outside. They did not touch me. The chancellor sent a secretary to retrieve my inventory notes and the document I had written. I gave him the inventory notes. The other document I had already given to someone else. I will not say who. I will only say that it is no longer in the palace and that the person who has it understands what it is. I walked out of the gate at dawn.
I had my satchel and my coat, and 13 years of careful, invisible service. I didn't look back. I have never been good at looking back. That, I realize now, might be the only thing the king and I have in common.
6 weeks after I left the palace, the king issued 3 decrees. He rescinded the harvest tax. He released 47 men from the palace prison whose sentences had not yet had a hearing. He formally dissolved the position of Lord Counsel, the role Lord Vareth had held, and ordered the title stricken from the official record. No explanation was given. I don't know what happened in that throne room after I said what I said. I don't know if anything I found changed him. I don't know if a man can be changed at 58 by finally being seen. I don't know if understanding where cruelty comes from makes any of the cruelty forgivable. I don't know if it should. What I know is this. A boy wanted to leave, and no one let him. And the man he became made everyone else want to leave instead. Cruelty almost always has a beginning. That beginning is almost never the cruelty itself. I am a scribe. I wrote it down. That is all I know how to do. I hope it was enough. My name is Elias. I read the journals of a cruel king, and I understood, in the end, that the cruelest thing in his story was not the king at all.